Chapter 18. Abby gasped as Zoran gently set her down on the soft, purple grass. It had been a week since the dinner where she and the other women from Earth were introduced to Valdier. Abby hadn't had much time to visit with the other women since then. She spotted them on occasion from a distance and had run into Carmen in one of the palace's long corridors while exploring. Carmen seemed nervous, as if she was trying to find a place to hide. She didn't say much to Abby other than that she was well and would talk to her later. Abby was puzzled about Carmen's behavior until she turned a corner a few corridors down and ran face first into Curizan, Zoran's youngest brother. Abby shivered as she remembered looking into Curizan's cold, dark eyes. Abby had to agree with Ariel on the scary son of a bitch description. He quickly excused himself and hurried off in the direction where Abby had last seen Carmen heading. She hoped Carmen would be all right. "Oh, Zoran, this is so beautiful," Abby exclaimed as she moved toward the edge of a crystal-clear pool before gazing at the small waterfall feeding into it. "I had hoped you would like it here," Zoran said, as he came up behind Abby and wrapped his arms around her. For the past week, Zoran had been debating about how to explain to Abby the transformation her body was seeking. Each time they made love, it was becoming harder and harder to keep her dragon from taking over. Hell, it was even harder for his own dragon not to demand it. It had only been his promise of explaining everything and then showing Abby how to complete the transformation by today that kept him at peace. "Abby, there is something I need to tell you," Zoran began. He gently turned Abby around in his arms. He had picked this place because of its seclusion. He wanted Abby to feel comfortable in her first change. His mother symbiot was waiting for his command to appear. Once the change was done, he would divide his symbiot, so her dragon would have the needed protection. But he hoped he could complete their first mating as dragons first. Pulling back, Zoran raised Abby's hands to his mouth, pressing a gentle kiss to each of her fingers. "Abby." Zoran stiffened suddenly as pain radiated through his body. "Zoran?" Abby felt Zoran's hands squeeze hers tightly and watched as his eyes darkened dangerously. "What?" Zoran thrust Abby behind him, ignoring her gasp of alarm when she saw the thick dart protruding from his left shoulder. Zoran let out a vicious growl, pulling the dart out before twirling around. He tried to shift into his dragon form, but was unable to as a wave of dizziness flooded through his body. Grasping Abby by the hand, Zoran began running for the cover of the thick forest surrounding the small meadow, only to stop suddenly as dark figures emerged from the shadows. Zoran turned, but his path was blocked by more dark figures. Abby was terrified. The huge dark figures were close to 7 feet tall. Black hair hung down to their waists. Their bodies were covered in a black leather with what appeared to be weapons strapped across their chests. Abby watched in horror as 3 of the figures raised a weapon and fired it at Zoran. She cried out as she felt Zoran jerk as 3 more darts hit him in his chest, shoulder, and leg. "No!" Abby screamed, holding on to Zoran as he slowly crumpled to the ground. "No! Please, no!" Abby pulled the darts out of Zoran and threw them aside. "Zoran, oh baby, I love you." Abby ignored the approaching figures as she focused on trying to get Zoran to look at her. "Tell me what to do. Please, be all right." A shadow covered Abby as she lay over Zoran's body, trying to protect him. "So we meet again, Valdier leader." Abby looked up into the face of the dark figure. She shivered when she encountered cold, dead-looking eyes. "What do you want?" she whispered. "Something that should have been given to me several months ago," the dark figure said, as he knelt down next to Abby and Zoran. "I do not like being denied what I want. And now it seems you have two things I want: the secrets to your symbiot and a taste of your female. I wonder which will be sweeter." The figure laughed coldly as he removed a small syringe from a pocket in his jacket. "I will let you think on it while I sample at least one of the two." Abby moved as if in slow motion, throwing herself at the dark figure before he could sink the syringe into Zoran. She felt the prick as the needle injected whatever was in the syringe into her side, even as she pushed the dark figure back and away. She heard a voice that sounded like hers, but different as she attacked the figure with everything within her. Waves of despair and dizziness swamped her as she fought the hands trying to restrain her before everything went dark. Zoran tried to roar out a challenge as he watched what was happening, but his voice and limbs refused to follow his directions. His dragon struggled to defend its mate, but was unable to fight through the layers of paralyzed muscles that encased it. The dark figure rose, wiping blood from his mouth as he smiled down cruelly on Abby's unconscious figure. "I will enjoy the taste of this one. She is a worthy mistress. Perhaps I will keep her for a while before turning her over to my men." His dark eyes turned to stare down at Zoran, laughing at the hatred staring back at him. "I was going to simply knock you out the easy way, but unfortunately, that was the only syringe I had, so I guess it will have to be the fun way. Just remember when you wake up what I want: the answer to how you control the symbiote. If I don't have the answer in 3 days' time, you will never see your female again, alive." Zoran roared silently as he watched his hated enemy, the Curizan half-blood Dark Prince, pick up Abby's still figure and press a kiss to her mouth, running his tongue back and forth across her lips. The last thing he heard before the blow to his head rendered him to the silence of darkness was Ben Kumain's cruel laughter. "Zoran, come on, wake up!" Creon patted Zoran's cheek a little harder. "I don't think hitting him harder is going to wake him up, Creon," Mandra said as he watched Zoran's mother symbiote move to encase his brother's body. "Whatever shit they gave him is powerful," Creon growled, turning to the third man standing back to the side. The large figure was dressed in solid black leather. His thick black hair hung down to his waist and was braided on each side to keep it out of his face. "Trimida root. It makes one of the most powerful drugs we have to paralyze the wild Goombas on our planet. They are extremely dangerous, not to mention stink to high heaven, and meaner than my half-brother." "Thanks for that non-needed bit of trivia, Haven," Mandra growled sarcastically. Haven shrugged his shoulders, not in the least bit intimidated by Mandra's growl. "You're welcome. If his symbiote is as good as I suspect, he should be coming around soon." Zoran heard the voices as if through a long tunnel, echoing at first, then becoming clearer and clearer as he came close to exiting it. He could feel his symbiote moving through his body, purging the vile drug that held him captive. As more of the drug was forced through his pores, his head became clearer, and so did his memories. Zoran's symbiote burst from around his body, shaking as if to rid itself of the droplets of Trimida, just as Zoran let out a roar of rage, shifting into his dragon shape. "Oh yeah, he's pissed," Haven said, warily keeping an eye on the furious dragon. Zoran swung his head around, looking for the Curizan's voice. His narrow, slitted eyes focused on Haven. A low, menacing growl rumbled in his chest as he slowly flipped over to a crouching position. He took a step toward the tall figure, waves of dragon fire building in his throat as he remembered Abby's still figure being carried away. "Zoran, stop! He is on our side," Creon said, stepping between Zoran's huge dragon and Haven. Zoran let out a deep growl, standing straight up to push his brother aside. Creon shifted quickly into his dragon. Snarling at Zoran, he warned him to stay back. Zoran ignored the warning, lunging forward and locking claws with Creon as he let a stream of dragonfire flow over Creon toward Haven. Haven rolled to one side, raising a force shield in front of him, deflecting the dragonfire as it poured around him. "Enough!" Creon yelled in dragon speak. "Enough, Zoran! Haven is the one who has been helping us. I told you about our informant at the meeting. This is not going to get your mate back." Zoran shook with the effort to get his dragon under control. The dragon was inconsolable at the loss of his mate. Zoran breathed deeply, trying to calm his dragon enough to make him listen to what Creon was saying. "Calm, my friend. We need to listen to what he has to say if we are to rescue our mate. She is mine as well. I cannot live without her either. Calm." Zoran kept repeating the message to his dragon until he finally brought it under control. With a shudder, Zoran shifted back, falling weakly to his knees. "Zoran, are you all right?" Mandra asked calmly. Zoran's eyes glowed as he stared coldly at Haven. "Ben Kumain took Abby. He took my mate. I will kill the bastard. I will kill every last Curizan if he so much as harms a hair on her." "Well, I guess that answers if he is all right. He is totally insane. Maybe you should lock his ass up until we get this mess under control," Haven said, with cool indifference. "This mess, as you call it, asshole, is your brother's doing," Zoran said, rising to his feet, his fists clenched into tight balls. "Not entirely," Creon said, softly. "I think it best if we take this somewhere more private." Creon spoke quietly into a communicator, and before anyone could say another word, all four men disappeared in a flash of light.